has the answers in the back, right? So once you find the answers in the back, you can just see how did you do. Now behind the correct answers there are also a series of numbers in parentheses. The beautiful thing about that is that those are the page numbers on which you'll find the information. So then you can go back, reread it, see if you have it. Now that you've read the material and you've self-tested on those questions and you see how you do and then you reread, you'll know I get it, I don't get it. Those things that you're not too sure about, write those down, bring those in as questions. You have a series of options in terms of when you ask those questions. You could ask me before class. I'll usually get in here a few minutes before class starts. You can ask in the middle of class while I'm lecturing, just raise your hand or shout out, whatever style suits you. I'll be happy to direct traffic in the classroom in whatever manner we need. Or you can wait until break or after class, but there is time built into the course for you to ask questions while I'm lecturing. That's normal. So feel free to jump in and do that. In talking with successful students, I find that those who read, self-test, go back and figure out what they might have missed, and then ask those questions when they come up during class are the most successful. Many of those students tell me that the lecture will answer their questions, but again, it's up to you when you decide to ask those questions, right? And again, get used to thinking in 4 possible answer multiple choice, because that's what your practice test will be of various sorts that I'll give to you. That's what the final exam will be, and that's what the state licensing exam will be. Nothing but 4 possible answer multiple choice questions. One of the greatest ways that I know of to prepare for that is to just take more and more and more multiple choice test questions. You get accustomed to thinking in a certain way. All right, another thing about this book is that there are a lot of math questions in here, and there are answers to the math questions as well. If you're still at the back, you can go, I think they have that in this edition. I'll say, yeah, they have like chapter 24 where they've separated out some math for you, and then they've got the answers and also how you get there. When we go through and do the math in the chapters, I'll walk you through those examples on the board when we're at them, and then also we'll do a complete comprehensive math final review. I've been told that the state exam is as much as 10% mathematics, but I've gotten feedback anywhere from students that said, I don't think there were more than a couple of math questions out of 140 some, to those who said, oh my God, the whole thing was math. So it all kind of comes down to how you feel about it. Rest assured that the math that we have in the class all relates to something tangible, and you'll understand the context of it, commissions, etc., and then that makes that math a little bit easier. So if you're math phobic, let me tell you that there are plenty of practicing real estate agents who are also apparently math phobic because they have trouble doing basic mathematic things and getting them right, yet they live and breathe and function and make a living in real estate. So don't let that worry you too much, but understand that is something that you might want to work on depending upon your skill level. And again, there will be some opportunity to practice specifically the questions that we'll have on the final, or in terms of the range or type of those questions, but also beyond that in the book and some practice tests I'll show you in just a little bit, where you can hone your math skills as it relates to real estate. Last thing about the book. You know when you read a really good book and images pop into your head and you can really see everything that's going on, you can hear the characters' voices, the stories, everything, it's perfectly vivid in your mind. This is nothing like that at all. This stuff at times can be dull and dry and quite disinteresting. What you are taking here is, in fair part, a real estate law class. How you will practice in the field might be significantly different than the things we cover in the course. So the state concerns itself mostly with consumer protection. That's what the course is all about. That's what this whole barrier to entry to get a license in anything is training, education, and understanding what's at risk, in other words, what you might lose if you go outside proper moral, ethical, industry, legal boundaries or whatever. So there's a lot of that specific kind of dry kind of learning. I enjoy that. I'm not a lawyer, but I kind of think like one. Play one in a classroom, I guess you might say. But for other people who take the course, that's exactly not what they came into. Much more into sales, into relationships, into making a living for themselves, whatever. Just suffice it to say that the course might not line up exactly with what you do day to day in the business. Now, I am an active broker, been licensed for pretty close to 20 years, got my license by taking pre-license classes at Waubonsee in the 90s. I also own and manage some real estate locally here. So I will try and teach the course as much as I can from a practice sort of focused perspective. But it's still not always going to line up that way. So when it comes back to this textbook, my suggestion is read it in smaller segments. If you've got class, if you're really busy and you got class coming up Tuesday and you don't have a lot of time and you're going to try and cram a whole chapter in or a couple of chapters in, that's pretty tough to retain the information. That's the whole point of what I'm saying here. So try and take it in manageable pieces, read a little bit. If you mind starts to wander, take a break, go do something else, come back to it. It's a very broad course. I've taught almost 24 different courses for college credit here at Waubonsee since I've been here. And this is one of the most difficult, just in that it's as broad as anything that I've ever taught. And so we touch a lot of range of subjects, and some things are different. There's always something difficult for even the very best students, just because it's hard to be an all-star at everything, right? So you'll find some things that come more naturally and some things that are very difficult, and we'll deal with those. People do get through the course, people do get their license, people do make a living, so it's the kind of thing we get through. But suffice it to say, it's challenging. It's a fair amount of work. If you're a typical Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of person, or even longer hours, you have family responsibilities, etc., I suggest that you use your weekends wisely. It's a little difficult this week. Here it is Tuesday night, and in 2 nights you're responsible for 2 more chapters. But normally, if you've got a couple of chapters coming up in the following week, I suggest you get those both read if you can over the weekend. Maybe skim the one to review for Thursday night, but again, it might be hard to cram it in on a Wednesday night or Thursday before class or something like that. Questions at all about this textbook or any of that sort of thing? Feel free to take notes, obviously, in it or write in it or whatever. Some people will follow along in the book as I lecture. I will be lecturing from PowerPoint slides, which largely come out of here, but there will also be some material I will give you in the course that's not in the book at all. There may be one question, not maybe one, there is at least one, maybe 2, but one I can think of, I always remember, on the question of the final exam that is not specifically in the text. I'll explain that to you, I'll remind you of it when we get there, and I'll remind you of it again when we get to the final review. Otherwise, pretty much what you're going to be tested on is there. However, I find from practice there are a few things that aren't in the book that are good things for you to know that I will add to this as we go along the way. So if you find some things that are in my PowerPoint notes that aren't in the textbook, that's for your preparation for the state exam, preparation for practice, for life as a real estate agent, but not necessarily because I'm going to throw that on the final exam. I try and be as clear of the question types that are on the final as possible. And we will have a complete and comprehensive final review, and I will give you a sense of what the terms are and how many questions are coming from which chapters when we get closer to the final exam at the end of the course. Got any questions before we move along? Okay, so back to the all-powerful syllabus here. We're meeting Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hopefully everybody got that this is 2 nights a week for 12 weeks. So that's the basic idea. This course ends the 12th of November, so that's the night on which we'll have the final exam. The state requires you to have 75 contact hours here in this course. So if you're going to miss class sessions, and I know I've heard from some of you that you already have some nights that you may be gone, you're allowed to make up to 10% of the classes. Now the License Act does not define exactly what a makeup course means. Or makeup session means. So that then comes down to my discretion. I have a few options. There are a couple of business law professors here that sometimes will allow, if they have room in their class, real estate students to sit in on a lecture on property or on something that's contracts or something that's related to real estate, and that will suffice as makeup. If we have lectures that are recorded that you can listen to the exact same thing that you would have heard if you're here, write me up a note or something, that can certainly work as making up the time. But basically what it allows you to do is be a little early, a little late, a time or 2, and miss 2 class sessions. If you're going to miss more than 2 class sessions, then we really need to have a heart-to-heart on how we're going to deal with that. There may still be ways to do that, but I need to know in advance so I can prepare you for extra work you may need to do in order to make that work. It's a little bit archaic to have an attendance requirement as opposed to a competency requirement, but that's what the state does. And so as a pre-licensed school, we have to live within that. All right, so that was the required course materials. Anyway, was the book at the top of page 2. There are a few optional materials that I listed for you here. First is what they call the candidate handbook. If you want to download a copy of that and read it, it wouldn't be a bad idea. It might be best if you read it sometime before you took the state exam. I'm not sure it really has a bearing on whether you passed this course or not, but it is available to you, and it is published by the state's testing company in order to allow candidates to be most prepared for the purpose exam. Then after that, I have links here and the syllabus, well, links, I'll show you where the syllabus is live online, where you can actually click on these things, where you can get access to the Real Estate License Act of 2000, the legislation that's going to govern a lot of what we're talking about, as well as the administrative rules that the state uses to manage that legislation. So those are things are there available for you. You do not need to download those. You don't need to learn them chapter and verse other than what's in the textbook or what we'll go over in class. But they're there if you're like me and enjoy reading legislation or rules, etc. Some students ask if they can record lectures. As you can see, Braden is kind enough to be recording these, and we have other links up online. If I, will do my best to record things or get them recorded, but you have my permission is the point to record whatever you want. You just literally can't get any commercial value out of it, but if you want to post it online or you want to make it available to others in the class, that's perfectly fine. You do not need my permission ahead of time to record my lectures. Keep in mind, if you're recording anybody else in the class, they have rights, and you would need to let them know, or you need to edit out your fellow students from those videos if there's any kind of an issue or possible issue. I put on here, under important dates, a reminder of the date of the final exam, just so that it's clear. Also, there are some quiz dates here. Let me just state for you very clearly, the quizzes are a bit of a mixed bag in this course. There is no intermediate homework that is graded, and there are no intermediate quizzes or midterm or anything else that is graded. Everything in this course revolves around a single final exam. Welcome to the law school experience. This is how law school works in many courses, and this is how the state has set this up. They really don't care where you're at midterm or 3/4 of the way or one weekend or whatever, so I don't burden you with things that you have to do. However, I give to you, to each of you, 4 paper printed with the answers on the back practice quizzes that are 50 questions each, so you can have something other than the questions at the back of the text to self-test on along the way. My experience in working with non-traditional, in other words, returning adult students, some of you haven't been in school for a long time, and you may feel like you're getting the material because you understand what I'm saying, but you don't really know until you take a few tests and see where you're at. So these quiz dates that are on here, and I'll re-explain this when we get closer to those or the nights I hand those out, are not something for which you must absolutely study. So when it comes to the quiz dates, and here are quizzes, turn off the school kid thing that says, oh my God, I have to be prepared for something on that night, no more than any other night. Right? Again, I expect you to have read, to be up to speed, to have learned the material as best you can before you come to class, so that you're not asking questions that shouldn't need to be asked. But these quiz dates, again, those are a reminder for me to hand you out those quizzes that you can take home. You test yourself, you have the answers, you see how you did, and you talk to yourself and say, I'm struggling, I'm only getting 60%. I'm doing great, I'm getting 90%. Whatever you need, so you have a sense of where you are. That's the purpose for those 4 printed quizzes. Otherwise, they serve the same purpose as what's in the back of the chapters. Just a little bit of a self-test. As I mentioned, everything in the course revolves around the single final exam. 75% is your threshold in the course, both for passing it and at the state exam. All right? So I will occasionally, if a student gets 70% or higher, give them a C grade in the class, but to pass for eligibility for the state licensing exam, 75% is the threshold that is established by the state. It's always been that way, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know, appraisal's only 70%, but this stuff has always been 75.
All right.
So that's what you need to be focused on. It's basically 3 out of 4. You got to get 3 out of 4 questions right in order to be able to get through out the other end of the course. We have 1 approved final exam with the state of Illinois, which means you can have 1 shot at taking the final. That's the way that it is. As an academic institution, Waubonsee is not excited about offering multiple attempts to get through a course. It's just not the norm unless somebody comes back and takes the course again. So you'll have one single attempt. Again, it's my job to get you fully prepared. We'll go through, we'll cover all the material. There will be no mysteries. We'll have a complete comprehensive final review in the week leading up to the final. And I'll try and point you in the right general direction. I won't just leave you with a 600-page book at the end and say, have fun, go study, but give you a sense rather of, don't bother rereading chapter 1. There's only one question in chapter 2, one question in chapter 3, 14 questions going to come out of chapter 4 or whatever, that kind of thing. So you'll have a sense where to focus, where to concentrate, and when you get there, spend time on the stuff you don't get. Sometimes when we're studying, it's easier to go back and retake the stuff that you already know because you feel good and it feels easier. Always focus on the stuff where you're struggling. As class goes on, and you're going to start tonight by introducing yourself, and I'm going to try and get to know each of you by name. I'm a little slow with names and faces. Get to know each other, and if you like each other, or if you didn't already come in here with somebody you know, form a small study group. That helps. Students that do that also do better. They get together for coffee at the library before class, in the classroom. It's usually available. That sort of thing. I encourage you to consider doing that. All right, as I mentioned, class participation here is really totally just about you participating. Feel free to ask questions. I don't care if you ask things, occasionally that is right in front of you in the book. Everybody does that a little bit. If you're doing it a lot, then I'll probably say something to you after class some night. But that rarely happens. The only time that happens is if somebody's not reading. So read the material before you come, and then please ask whatever questions you have. The odds are very strongly that if you have a question after having read and self-tested, so do other people in the room. And you'll be doing everybody a favor by raising your hand or by just shouting out, how does this work or how does that work? If you have something specific going on in your life or some experience you've had, you're not quite sure how it applies, I may or may not be able to answer it, but I'll do my best. I have a pretty broad background, not terribly deep necessarily, but pretty broad background in real estate transactions. And so in most cases I can at least give some perspective, if not answer a question that people would have. The bottom of this page down here, the grading scale. So it's a college course, so besides trying to get 3 out of 4 and pass for the state exam, there is an A, B, C, D, F scale. 90% A, 80% B. Notice that the one difference from the traditional 90, 80, 70, 60 kind of is that 75% or higher is where I normally draw the line for a C. That's to help remind you that that's what you're looking for, is that C or higher to earn state exam eligibility. If you don't care about getting the broker's license, you're just here for knowledge, then several things change. I don't care how many classes you miss, for example, because it won't make any difference for the state exam eligibility. And if you let me know ahead of time, again, sometimes I'll give a C down to 70%, so long as the person understands that does not get them eligibility to the state exam. All right, so that's that. Then next thing we have in here is some basic rules on the course policies. All that stuff really says is be good boys and girls and do your work and don't cheat and that kind of thing. I always say this, I don't know if I've ever had this case, but just to be clear, you have to have a photo ID and name, and everything's got to match up to take the state exam. You're videotaped and photographed at the state exam. So if you're here to prepare to take the exam for somebody else, or if you're here to hope to get through and you don't do as well as you thought and you plan to hire somebody else to take the test, those people get caught. So I wouldn't do that. All right, so under the tentative course outline, which really very rarely changes, that's the roadmap or the blueprint for where we're going to be. So if you look at tonight, we're going to do personal introductions. We're going through syllabus review now, course overview also, and then I've got a little bit more study materials to show you online. And then when we're done with all those introductions and everything, we'll either take a break or, depending on what people want to do, we'll press on, because there's only about a half an hour worth of lecture from chapter 1 that we'll cover this evening. All right, so that kind of tells you where we're at and what we're going to do. Again, the quizzes are listed over here, those 4 paper quizzes. That's just the night that I got to hand them out to you. Reminds me to have them. Or if I don't hand it out to you that night, to say, Professor, what happened to that quiz? And then I'll curse myself and then give it to you at the beginning of class the next time, or for those who want to wait, I'll give it to you then. I usually do or can also post those quizzes online in what we call the Blackboard Course Management System shell and make them available that way too. So. Oh, and by the way, I was going to comment, And I forgot, when you're doing those back of the chapter tests for self-practice after you've read, I mentioned I suggest you do it on blank paper. If you mark your answers in the book, when you go back 8, 10 weeks from now to look at chapters 2, 3, 4, you're already going to have marked those answers, and it'll be like more reading. But I guarantee you that by the time we get to weeks 9, 10, 11, and even 12, you will have forgotten a lot of the stuff that you self-tested and read in the book in chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So if you do it on a blank piece of paper, you can go back later in the course, and even though you've seen those questions before, it'll be very much like taking them for the first time. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend that you do that, so you can use that more often. There are also, at the back of the text, 3, I think it is, practice exams that once you get toward the end of the course, or just for use for practicing to prep for the state exam, you can use those as well to test and see how you did, and the answers for those are in the back of the book also. Very last little bit of information at the end of the syllabus, on the bottom of the last page, a little bit of information about taking the state exam. The eligibility for the state exam is typically 21 years of age. If anybody in here is going to be less than 21 when you're done with the course, you'd have to wait until you're 21, or have completed 2 years of college and this real estate coursework. And by 2 years of college, it would be 4 semesters of 12 hours each. That's the minimum to be full-time. So if you've got 48 semester hours of college or more, and then you take these courses, the state might let you take the exam as young as 18. But most people today don't take the test until you're 21. I don't care how old you are when you're taking the course. And your eligibility from passing the course is good for 4 years. So if you're 20 and you're worried about that, you're just going to have to wait a few months or whatever before you're actually able to take the test. But the phone number and the website for the testing company are at the bottom of the syllabus. They're also in the textbook, and they're available to you online in this course module that I'll show you shortly. And so just know that that information is readily available to you. If you forget all this, you can always email me about it, but it's right in front of you in several different sources if you're trying to figure out, after you've passed the courses, what do I do now to get registered? Go to their website, call them on the phone, ask them, and they'll tell you from there. Questions about any of that stuff in the syllabus so far? All right, well, let me turn this thing back on then, and take just a moment to warm up. What I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you this online course shell that I may refer to from time to time, or in Blackboard, the Blackboard course shell. It's available to all of you in this course. If I can, there we go. For that to come up, hopefully it'll be a little bit brighter. There are 2 ways in which you can access this course shell, as far as I know. One is to go directly to waubonsie.blackboard.com. You'll need your X number and your password. If you have never logged in to either MyWCC or to Blackboard, then there's some magic first-time password. Anybody remember what that is? Is that your birthday or your social security number or something? It's one of those kinds of you know it, nobody else does sort of things. But you can contact the help desk, and they'll be able to tell you what that is. So here's one way to go through here. I tend to go into MyWCC, which is where you'll find access to your student email, to your grades, and a few other things like that. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to come in and put in your X number, and then you'll put in your password here, whatever that is, and then that'll log you into MyWCC. Do the same thing with Blackboard, but it'll bring you to it more quickly. Again, I use this a lot. You won't have this faculty tab or a lot of these other tabs I have. You'll have a student tab that will list your course. For me, mine looks a little bit different. Obviously, I have a bunch of courses and it's under a faculty tab. But you'll do the same thing. You'll just come over here to this course. Bear with me just a minute, please. Always have to run this. Where do they? Here we go. Just reset the screen resolution at the beginning of every semester. Hopefully that will solve the problem. Yeah, now you can see it. All right, so here, where you've got your list of courses, you're going to come in, and this is the course here. So I'm just going to click on this, and it'll take me right to it. Or you click on this Blackboard thing, it'll either open up a new tab or a new window, but it brings you straight into the course. So this is what you'll see basically when you enter into this. This first thing at the home page, this AMP-Illinois Real Estate Broker Candidate Registration Instructions, is something for you to do that has nothing to do with your grade, but you can't take the state exam until you've done this. You can do it tonight when you leave here. You can do it in the middle of the class. You can do it in between classes. You can do it after you finish Real Estate 105. It is better for us and better for you if you do this sooner rather than later. We cannot tell the state that you have passed the courses if you have not registered in AMP's system. AMP is the testing company with which the state of Illinois has contracted for at least the last 15 years to manage the real estate broker and now managing broker licensing exams. So you click on that and it'll open a document. I guess I can do that for you. And it has live links in it, so you'll literally be able to click on those links and it'll take you right to their web page. So here, again, you click here and it takes you exactly where you need to be. The instructions are here. Once you register with AMP, you cannot prove to yourself that you've registered right away. It's an overnight batch process kind of thing for them. So students have told me that in the past it's taken up to several days before they've been able to find themselves in the system after they registered. So it's not real time like you're used to with most internet applications, where you sign up for somebody's newsletter and the next thing you know it's in your inbox. It takes a couple of days. So again, just be aware of that. But you need to register yourself because otherwise we can't put you into the system. It will tell you that we need your ID number or your registration number or whatever. If you want to email that to me once you get it, you are welcome to do so. We have thus far not had to use that. We've been able to identify our students by name alone, but it does not hurt if we have your registration number. That's the intent of the system. And then if the administrative assistant who puts that in, once I tell her these people passed, these people didn't, and she goes in and enters the people as being eligible for the state exam, or at least having passed this course, if she has trouble, then either she or I have that information. But anyway, this is there for you. Just click on that, and it's there, and it's live links, and it'll be there for the entire course time and beyond. The syllabus that I passed out is also right here. It's available if you lose it and aren't sure about it, or you're at work and don't have it, your folder with you. You can find it by just clicking on that. It opens a PDF. You should be able to read that on most any device. Over here on the left, there are some other links and things here. This one here that I just clicked on, PowerPoint slides, these are probably the slides that I'm going to use to lecture for each chapter. I reserve the right to change them up to about 10 minutes before class time if I decided that I found something I want to add or change or modify. But if you like to take notes, one of the things you can do with PowerPoint slides is you can print them as, I guess they call them handouts. And so you can go in and print them as handouts, and you can get 3 to a page, for example, with lines next to them. So as I'm lecturing, you'll literally have a miniature of the slide and those little notes. If that's of value to you, there they are. Just don't be surprised if you come to a slide and it's nominally different, or there's an extra slide in there that I've added or something. You won't be damaged or disadvantaged by that, but for those of you who'd like to take handwritten notes that way, that's why they're there. And all of them are there now. So again, the likelihood is that they won't change or won't change very much, but I do try and update things, and in this case, at least as it relates to some things in finance and closing at the end of the textbook, there are some things that have changed that need to be updated, and I may need to add things like that along the way. Okay, so that's the PowerPoint slides link. If you click on any one of these, it'll open them in PowerPoint. If you don't have PowerPoint, Microsoft does give or make available a free PowerPoint reader, but it'll open as an editable slide presentation if you have a current version of PowerPoint. This link here of practice quizzes is extremely important for some people. What I have done for those who take the course online is broken the course into multiple units. These units are fictitious. They're not related in the textbook. I just decided to break them up this way. So chapters 1 through 6, what I'm calling unit test 1, and this is available to you now for grins if you wanted to go in tonight and test yourself on all the course material. You could do that. Just go in there, and each one of these will generate a 20-question quiz. And there are between 100 and 180 questions in a pool of questions for each of these units. So each time you self-test on these practice quizzes, you'll get a slightly different mix of questions. Some of the questions may be very similar to the ones at the back of the chapter. Some of them may be very similar to those tests I give you. Some of them may be completely unrelated, but I still think they're worth knowing, and they relate to real estate, and who knows what you're going to get at the state exam. And some of them may be remarkably similar to questions on your final exam. It's a mix of what's there. The point is that when you go in and take these in an online environment, again, you're getting a slightly different mix of questions, more practice stuff. You're also getting a broader range of questions that have been written in different test styles. And the state exam is written by no fewer than 100 test question writers. So you have a lot of different styles of writing you're likely to see at the state exam compared to one style you're going to get here in your textbook. But also when you miss questions in these practice quizzes, there is feedback at the end. So if you go all the way through the process, so let me just click on this one here, and I'm not going to intentionally try and get anything right. You just come in, you click begin, you don't worry about anything, this doesn't affect your grade. It does record it so you can see how you did later, but this cannot damage you in this course in any way by using these, right? I won't even look at them. So if you come in and say something to me in 3 weeks, boy, I sure bombed that quiz, I will have no idea what you're talking about. I'll never look at this unless you ask me to review a particular question with you, which you can do in class, or you can do by email or whatever. So this is something we're going to cover on Thursday night. According to law, a trade fixture is. So I'm going to put down here that a trade fixture is personal to you, and then I'm going to click Save the Answer. Then question number 2, the homeowner wishes to cover greater than fire and extended coverage nature of the homeowner's policy, blah, 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 which is a risk. I'm going to put down war or nuclear explosion, click Save Answer. And now I could go through and do all the rest of these, but basically what I want to do is just save and submit. It's going to say I haven't done a bunch of stuff, we don't care. And so there, now the quiz is done, I click OK again, and the system automatically grades it. If I get it right, that's all you see. Got it right, brilliant. Next one, not so good. So here's response feedback. I've put feedback in for when you get wrong answers so you don't have to wade through it when you get stuff right all the time. But this is the lesson. This is our conversation. You come in, you look at the question that I ask you, you get it wrong, here's me counseling you wisely, here's what you need to know about this, here's why the answer is what it is or why it isn't what it isn't. You can print these if you want, if it's helpful. Again, the most successful students spend time doing this over and over again. You have no obligation to do so. You have no obligation to ever go into this course shell at all. It's a tool that I've created for you that probably has about a $50 value in the marketplace because you can buy from places like ExamSmart and other Real Estate Exam Pro and a few other places for $50 the opportunity to self-test and a bunch of practice test questions before you go to the state exam. And my deal with the college is most of our college courses are closed. Once the course is over, you cannot go back and re-access courses after a while because they don't want a student in the fall semester selling their work and the answers in the course to a student in the spring semester. So they don't let students go back into most online courses or most course shells. This remains open for a year before it's deleted. So once this course is over in November, it'll be there through at least through August of next summer, at least through next summer. So if you don't take the state exam until next spring, come on back in here. Enter into this thing. Use these practice tests. Use it as a tool, a free tool, for having come here to prepare yourself for the state exam. Yes?
How do you access that again?
Well, this is on the left through, once you're in the course, practice quizzes. So I just clicked on practice quizzes and then I broke it down into these 5 units, showing you this, the chapter numbers. And then this comprehensive math review, I recommend, but it has math questions that are much broader than what you will get tested on in the course. So for some people, they get disheartened by this because there's some stuff that's pretty complicated. But like this kind of question here, you won't get a question like this from me, but you could get a single question like this at the state exam. So again, part of it is course level proficiency, part of it is state exam level proficiency. Now to get into this in total, this was where you either entered into the Blackboard shell by going to wavansi.blackboard.com and entering in your X number and your password. This was one option to do that. or by going to mywcc.waubonsee.edu and entering in your password and your X number and your password, like I said, and then clicking on the Blackboard link next to the course under your student tab. And if you have any trouble getting in here, you email me or you can contact the help desk and we'll get you in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm having problem right now. I'm actually at that site, and I can't get to it. It says it's temporary moved or something.
You should be able to. Anybody else gotten into this? I think I've gotten a few emails from people that maybe a few people have been able to get in here. Yeah, so I'm not sure why you wouldn't be able to. Maybe we'll look at it either on if we take a break or right after class and see if I can help figure out what the deal is. But you should be able to get in there without any problem. I assume you're registered and all that stuff, right? I mean, you're registered with in the course. And, right? Yeah, yeah. Because otherwise, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. But we'll look at it and see. Again, for those of you who want to use it, this is meant to be a powerful tool to really help you get through the course, not with less work, actually with more work, but with greater efficiency and effectiveness.
You get your password and you attempt to log in the first time?
No, you have to set it, and so your initial password, and this is where I forget because it's been so many years since I did my first login, it's either like your birthday or your...
But you do that when you attempt to log in?
Yes, log in the first time, correct, and then it'll ask you then to set a password. And you have to change the password every 4 months here or thereabouts, I think. So your password will be good for the semester, but if you come back to use it again, say later in the spring or something, you'll have to reset your password when you go in. And if you have trouble with that, again, you can contact the help desk even next semester when you're done with this course and just say, hey, I need to log in and I can't remember how to get in. And they should be able to help you with that over the phone, reset a password if you need it, that kind of thing. Yes?
I set up mine today for the first time, and I just hit forgot password, and then it asked me for my name, last four of my social, and then I made my password.
Okay, so there was a way to just click on, I don't know my password, and it helped you that way. Excellent, thank you for sharing that. I apologize, I just don't do that enough anymore. I look at it every time before class, and I realize there's no easy way as an instructor for me to find how to do that. So, anyway, use the tools. Again, there's no disadvantage to you whatsoever to do that. When you are in this courses thing here, you'll probably just have one course listed. I have dozens or more because of all the classes I teach, but there will only be one or two. If you're registered for both Real Estate 100 and 105, there'll be 2 courses here. If you're taking more courses here now or in the past have taken some, there may be some other things listed. And there might be like a student training or practice course or something, tells you, tips about online learning or something, that kind of thing. Otherwise, it should be pretty clear once you're in the Blackboard shell to be able to find that course. Should be. All right, so I'm just going to log out of that. Any other questions about that? Let me make sure there wasn't anything else I wanted to show you in there. Oh, yeah, there are a couple other quick things. Oops, wrong course. I'll give you the right course. I occasionally will post current articles. That's this recent articles link. So these are listed here from previous semesters, but I'll post the newest ones. Where am I going? Down toward the bottom, I guess. So maybe I'll post, have to reverse the order of this. But just out of frames or other things that might be pertinent to the area. There was a recent article I saw recently that I thought if I go back and find it again, I might post. So if you're interested in reading real estate articles, I put this stuff up here again. You're not going to get tested on random things I post here. It's just for those who are of interest to do that. And then video links. This is where I have the links to the, well, there's a fair housing video we're going to watch later in the course. If you missed that night, that 18-minute video is up here. If you want to watch that ahead of time, you're welcome to. It's really a law firm's pitch of a case that they won in Ohio, but it's germane to what we study in Chapter 21. And then this here is a link to Braden's YouTube page. I've just left this up before. I assume that's okay with you.
No, that's fine.
But these are from last semester. He recorded links. And there's some stuff from Real Estate 105 also. But basically, we broke these down into roughly 1 hour, before break and after break things, just with his iPad set up and me randomly walking around and forgetting that I was being videotaped. But there it is. So again, if you missed that night and I don't get that recorded this time, or whatever, there's something there from the past currently, and you could look at that, and that would conceivably count as a makeup if you can't make some other class. It's also good if it's there for you, for your review, etc. It's something I'd like to do more of. It's just hard for me to remember, honestly, to be prepared to videotape when I come in at night. And this one here, internet links. At the back of at the end of the chapters, there are a bunch of web pages. Those are all live here. So if you're interested in some link at the end of a particular chapter, I've just made them live inside the course. Hopefully they're all still accurate. I don't check them anymore, but that's what that is for. And then the real estate careers, there's a night when we're going to talk about other things you can do in the real estate business besides just be a real estate agent. I do weave a lot of this already into the course. The state requires we cover 6 hours, and we'll only have 1 3-hour night when we do that, because I will stop and do some of that in the middle of the course if we're talking about a particular principle. And I'll start explaining that aspect tonight as to why I do that and how I think that way. But again, this is for information and preparation for that class. Instead of me coming up with 24 handouts of, I think one of these documents, like this one here, is 24 pages of full color stuff. I'd rather you download it, looked at it on your tablet, read it ahead of time, or whatever. I do not ask you any questions at all on this real estate careers section on your final exam, nor do I believe that the kind of information we'll cover in that one night is on the state exam, so it's not always a critical night. If we run behind or we need more time, we can cut into that night to study other stuff. But it is for those people who might decide later, maybe I don't want to be a broker, maybe I do want to be an appraiser, maybe I want to try property management. What's the difference between commercial and real estate, again, and residential real estate again? That's a perfect night to cover that sort of thing. Again, this state just wants you to be aware of what the breadth of the real estate industry is. So that's why I have that there, because there is no section like that in the text. So it's where I upload some additional documents for you to read that might be helpful for your career, but really don't have a whole lot to do with getting through the course or getting licensed. All right, any other questions about this at all? Okay. So I'm just going to exit that way, just click on that to log out, and then I will log out of here. All right, so what I would normally do next is go through, and do introductions. Since we have a pretty good sized class, I think what we'll do is we'll take a bit of a break, maybe about 10 minutes. If you're not familiar with the building, you can find the restrooms, you can find the vending and coffee machine. Coffee machine is important on nights when I'm really boring. And then, for those of you who need a smoke, you can find a place. I don't know if you can smoke it in your car, I think, or you can break into somebody else's car. You can do that. Otherwise, and then we'll be back here. We're going to go through and we'll do personal introductions. I will give you a re-intro of myself, which will take a few minutes. And then I'll ask each of you to tell me a little bit about yourself. That's for multiple reasons. One, again, I want you to get to know each other a little bit. Two, I can't remember names and faces very well. But when you tell me, yeah, I was retired after being with ComEd for 45 years, that's trivia. Trivia I'm good at. Then I can write the trivia down next to your name. And then when I see you next time, I won't remember that your name is Amy, but I'll remember, oh, Amy worked for ComEd for 45, or she worked for ComEd for 45 years. Then I can find that note, and I can find the name. And also I created a little seating chart. You have no obligation to sit where you're sitting, but for me it would be really, really helpful once I start to get to know your name if you never moved again. Also, it would be helpful if you came in wearing the same clothes and had your hair trimmed to the exact same length every night, so I don't get confused, because I'm a little challenged in that regard. All right, let's go ahead and it's 25 after, so if we can limit it tonight. Normally we'll take a 15-minute break, a little bit later than this. But we can take a 10-minute break. I think that'll work out well. And then we'll do the intros, and then I'll lecture on chapter 1, and then we'll be done for the night, and hopefully get out of here by